covering the Low Country. This is News 2's Beyond the Headlines.
Today, Highway 526, the road often traveled, but will it finally be completed? We will hear from both sides of this highly contentious issue. And Republican Senator Jim DeMint calling it quits. Why step down now? Is it a question of power, or is he following the money? Good morning, everyone, and thanks a lot for joining us for another edition of Beyond the Headlines. Carolyn Murray in for Brad Franco, and we have guests today who will talk about some of these issues. But the first issue we want to tackle is one that surprised a lot of people. This is the issue of Senator Jim DeMint announcing that he is in fact resigning at the beginning of the year. Brian Hicks, a columnist with the Post and Courier, as well as Kelly Golden with 94.3 Radio. We also have on the set today Charleston Mayor Joe Riley, as well as Rich Thomas representing NICS 526. We'll talk about a lot of different issues, but first let's tackle the issue of Senator Jim DeMint. Who's surprised by that?
Shouldn't we all raise our hands on that one?
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kelly, go ahead.
Well, the surprise being, it's almost like a bad breakup. It came out of nowhere, right? And now what? Why so sudden? Everyone's asking, Senator DeMint, you suggest he's following the money. I think he's a maverick. He's been on top of everything and ahead of stuff for quite some time. I don't think he's following the money.
Well, there is a lot of money to follow, though. There was this position, being the head of the Heritage Foundation, would pay more than $1 million. Yeah. We know the Senate salary is about $174, a little less than $200,000. Of course, senators can make a lot more money than that. But what do you think, Brian?
I think he was bad. He was not well positioned in the Senate going into the new year. The National Republican Party doesn't really like him. He's cost them some seats with promoting some of these people who are unelectable in the general election. And I think he didn't want to go back to the Senate and be a backbencher. And he sees the Heritage Foundation as a way to build his power and his base. And as I said in the paper, he's preaching to the choir now.
He'll be in Washington, but in a different way. But this is a way for him to maintain a degree of power and authority.
I think he's going to be building up favors, and that he will call in at some point when he wants to do something else.
Oh, I think that's a little unfair, Brian. He's had victories and failures, and make no mistake, he was powerful in the Senate. Although they were a do-nothing Senate, I can only imagine his frustration. I think he feels like he can get the conservative message out that didn't clearly happen in this election. Next time around, maybe we're going to see a 2016 run.
Well, for a guy who is so principled, an ideologue, actually, he sure did quit awful easy.
Listen, I told you the bad breakup because I feel like there's possibly a tail between the legs. Why are you leaving when we need fiscal conservatives so badly now more than ever in D.C.? That's where I go with the bad breakup, because it came out of nowhere. Why now when we need you? We need you.
Well, we know what he's going to do, who in fact will replace him. We know who the front runners are. I spoke with Tim Scott this morning. Tim Scott says that he will do what the Lord positions him to do.
The Lord or Governor Haley?
He says the Lord. That was the title he used. Was he perhaps speaking of Governor Haley? I'm not sure, but that's the word he used to me.
He should be very deferential to her for the next couple of weeks.
Oh, and you think, in fact, that is what she will do?
I think there's a good possibility of that, or she could have Henry McMaster, our former Attorney General, be a placeholder.
Yeah.
You think that's likely?
I don't know.
Okay.
Haley is hard to predict. Whatever she does, it will be whatever's best for the governor.
Okay. Let's open up the discussion now, something that everyone in the community is talking about, whether they are directly impacted by the completion of 526 or not. This is a road often traveled, but for some reason, it has not been completed. Charleston Mayor Joe Riley, as well as Rich Thomas from NICS 526 are both here. You both have been talking about this issue, but you can't seem to come to terms on an agreement on whether this should be completed or not. Rich, let's allow you to talk about it. You said you traveled that area this morning, and you see areas where traffic is not, and the infrastructure is not being utilized well.
Yeah, absolutely. I drove in this morning from Johns Island and on River Road. It's about 12 miles long. I counted 82 cars, hardly a traffic jam coming into the city. Drove through Maybank, Folly Road, through town, and I actually got here this morning quicker than I have pretty much ever before. So I didn't really see the big need for it. We have put forth suggestions for improvements on other roads and intersections. County Council presented those May of last year. We think there are fixes that could be done that aren't going to cost almost $600 million that could alleviate a lot of the traffic congestion.
Infrastructure
in the
Bank
area.
says no way on some of those projects. Charleston Mayor Joe Riley wants that project and says we can get it done. What do you think County Council will do, Mayor?
Well, the citizens want the project. I represent them. The polls showed 72%. My anecdotal experience going out in the community, overwhelmingly, people stopped, waved, Mayor Riley, thank you for doing it, we need it. They're wise. Citizens are wise. They understand the traffic jams now, and Rich is very lucky. His job now is building a house addition onto their home. He's not a commuter. He wasn't there when the real traffic was there, when people are trying to get to work and stuck in traffic jams and trying to get through Foley and Maybank and trying to get through West Ashley or coming into the community. The commuter traffic is terrible. It will only get worse. We have a duty to the citizens we represent to give them highway infrastructure. And if we miss this opportunity, $558 million will be gone. It will never be built, and we will be sentencing future generations to horrific traffic jams. And the fact is, what we have is a hard bypass that wasn't completed. That's what the I-526 stopping at Savannah Highway, stopping at the James Island connector. So Rich has to use streets in neighborhoods to get wherever he wants to get. Other people that take the main road have to use Savannah Highway that citizens are in great competition for, just to be able to live, to be able to get to work. If you were there at 7:30 this morning...
Are you going through neighborhoods to get where you need to go?
I don't think so. And to Mayor Riley's point about commuting, my wife works in the medical center. She drives in and out every day. Where she sees the problem is on James Island Connector going into the medical center. That's going to be the terminus of this road. It was never included in any of the assessments that were made. Mayor Riley and the others purposely left it out because it's a bottleneck now, and when you dump an interstate's worth of traffic down on the connector going into one lane through the medical center, it's going to be an absolute disaster.
It's very interesting. What the studies show is that it reduces the traffic because right now on the James Island connector are people from parts of James Island that are going to Boeing. They've got to take the connector, come in, do the loop, get on the crosstown and get out. When the I-526 is completed, they'll get on I-526, take it to Boeing. So it will take traffic off. There'll be less traffic coming onto Calhoun Street when it's completed. It's because the hard bypass wasn't completed, and the 72% of the people who are in favor of it understand that, and they know, they live it. I mean, you look at the people on Savannah Highway early this morning coming out of Carolina Bay, or 15 or 20 subdivisions, neighborhoods, and Savannah Highway. They're competing with the people that are coming through I-526 and stopped where the bypass isn't completed, and they're using Savannah Highway. Savannah Highway is going to get more pressure. It's going to be more difficult, and this would be a huge tragedy if we don't build this infrastructure now. We don't have two ways to get on and off of Johns Island, and we need four. That's what the I-526 gives us, two more options.
Brian, you've been looking at this issue for a very long time, writing stories for and against it. What is your position in terms of how you believe the completion of this infrastructure will affect the city and affect commuters?
Out in West Ashley, I think a lot of people would like it as a way to get around Savannah Highway, which is becoming about as bad as 17 in Mount Pleasant. My main concern, and the thing that I've taken into account in everything I've written about 526, is how Johns Islanders feel about it. And I guess my question is, the Nix 526 people the other night, Mayor said 20 to 40% more growth on Johns Island if this road is built. Is there any way through zoning or any way that we could limit this if we put the road on there that Johns Island doesn't turn into Mount Pleasant?
Well, you handle growth through zoning. You don't handle growth by making hardworking people have a miserable experience trying to get to work in one. That's mean-spirited, and that's negative, and that's wrong, and that's very elitist for people to say that, which a lot of them are, well, those average people, they just got to have a traffic jam. The way you handle growth is through zoning, and we went through a process on Johns Island. The city adopted an urban growth boundary where we annexed onto James Island between Brownswood and Plow Grand would be the area for, you know, kind of subdivision type development and mixed-use communities. We wouldn't go beyond that. And then the county downzoned Johns Island to substantially reduce the amount of development that could occur there, and to preserve the rural nature and to make it a good deal for people to keep their farmland and build a couple more houses on it and in a group with a family and continue to farm. So that has been done. We certainly need to keep an eye on it. The city, lots of people have come to me and said, we'd like to annex into the city if you can give us better zoning than we got in the county. We said, absolutely not. So you do that through zoning, but certainly give the citizens decent infrastructure so they can safely and conveniently get around. And you don't do it, not only is the traffic going to get worse, you're going to have a lot more wrecks. And you know, on James Island, with the route that Rich uses in 2035, the Wapoo-Cut Bridge traffic will be greater than it was before the James Island connector was built. We're sentencing future generations to a traffic mess if we don't build this.
I have nightmares from that Wapoo-Cut traffic when I was a kid, Mayor Joe.
Sure.
And I will say, Rich, and not to jump in here for Johns Island, but you are trying to control your own destiny by becoming your own town.
Absolutely.
So
Well,
with that being
I'm
said,
not
you
sure
would
that's
be...
happening, but that's
Well,
a
no,
good idea.
I mean, that's exactly what the next 526 people told me this week
Some
on
people
the
have said
radio.
that.
Well, that apparently is your solution to possibly controlling your destiny when it becomes, you know, his fear of maybe you're going to turn into a Mount Pleasant, which, by the way, 17 in West Ashley has turned into a 17 in Mount Pleasant. It's happening.
It has. And Rich, you're new to this community. You say that you've only lived here about 4 or 5 years, and you've lived in cities where they really do have traffic that, you know, creates parking lots for hours at a time.
Absolutely.
It's all relative. It may not be the kind of traffic that you are accustomed to seeing or the kind of traffic that you battled, but for some commuters, it is a real impact on their lifestyle and their ability to get to and from work.
Oh, absolutely.
The lack of completion with this project.
No one's questioning that. And again, what we've put forth and what County Council put forth was a set of projects that wouldn't cost near as much, that would address a lot of those particular choke points. Mayor Riley talks about some of the issues on Savannah Highway, on Highway 17, Glen McConnell at 526. And some of these projects were put forth to address those exact issues. Wouldn't cost $558
But the infrastructure bank said no.
Well, it's funny because Chip Limehouse said, yeah, we can do that, and there was precedence for that being done. Nothing in the enabling legislation for the infrastructure bank says that cannot be done. That's a political issue. The infrastructure bank decided, no, we're not going to do that, having done that before. Now, when Chip Limehouse says, sure, we'll take a look at that, and then he gets smacked down a couple of days later by Speaker Harrell, and he changes his tune on that matter, a chip flop, if you will, they say, no, we can't do that. But Robin Welch pointed out the other night, it's a great deal for the state. We're not asking the state to spend $558 million. We're asking to spend maybe less than
chip
half
flop,
of that.
that's the newest addition to the Merriam-Webster.
That's
Ron, you
that's
wanted to
trending on
respond to
Twitter,
that?
yeah.
Well, I think the point that Robin made the other night was that the infrastructure bank might see this as a good deal, saying, oh, don't spend $558 million, we'll just take half of it and do these road projects. The way the infrastructure bank will look at that is, this project's in jeopardy, we can get all of it.
Yeah,
I was looking.
They won't give you half, they'll say they're not gonna get an approval
You
for
get
this
none.
interstate, we'll just keep it all.
Well, right, again, it's a matter of political will.
Are you
because
willing to
they
make
could
that risk?
do
You're
that.
willing to take that chance of
What
losing all
risk?
of it?
I don't see it as a loss, actually. I see it as a benefit because we're not
If
sucking
nothing
up.
is done, you see that as a benefit, the complete
Well,
loss,
again,
of all the money?
you know, this project was not very high on the list to begin with, and it moved up on the list because of political pressure. There was originally $420 million allocated, then it was $558 sometime out in the future, so that money doesn't really exist. The $420, that's bonding authority. That $420 could turn into $250 million of bonding authority to address these specific projects it wouldn't cost, wouldn't have the environmental effects, wouldn't have the bad transportation effects, wouldn't have the bad public policy effects for the whole state.
Now I'm confused. Wait, Rich, because Mayor Joe on my show this week on the radio said the money's there.
Well, the money is there, and you can't reprogram it. I was looking for a letter from Chip Limehouse's father 2 years ago, almost exactly when he was head of DOT, that said you can't do it, and if you do that, it's a no-build. This project's dead. You go to the bottom of the list. It
So
can't
Chip
be done,
Limehouse
but
was
it
just
can't-
wrong.
It can't be done. The money's not there for that. But even more important than that, these projects don't fix it. You're not taking one car off of Savannah Highway. You said, well, we improve Main Road. Well, what about all those people that need Savannah Highway to get out of their homes, to get to work, to kids get to school, whatever? So what you're doing is you want to use Savannah Highway ad infinitum to get on and off of Johns Island and compete with the people on Savannah Highway that need it to get to work, to say nothing of those that need a more direct route to. I was at St. Francis Hospital, 6 weeks ago, and a doctor on Johns Island said, and one of the other people said, oh gosh, it'd be so much more convenient to get to West Ashley, St. Francis Hospital on McConnell if we had that. And that's to me, the thing that the 76% of people want it, and even the alternatives that are proposing are not going to address. If this highway is built, when it's built, Maybank Highway on James Island sees a dramatic reduction in traffic. Now that was a road not built to be a super highway. That was a road. You had Riverland Terrace and other neighborhoods there. You got golfers trying to cross from the 9th green to the 10th tee, and that's Rich is using that as his cut to get someplace. And what we're asking for is another route for Rich to take, so that he doesn't have to drive through neighborhoods to get where he's going. And that is, to me, the really frustrating thing about this is that we don't really care about the average person who needs to get around. That's why I'm fighting so hard for this, and that's why 72% of us want this, and that's why the city's working to partner with the county government to get it done.
All right, and that is the final word on this, and we can continue our discussion, but we're going to have to wrap this up for viewers and listeners. Charleston County Council will vote on the issue December 13th. No idea of the time on when that meeting will happen, but we will hopefully have a decision. It'll be the Christmas gift to the community. That's it for this edition of Beyond the Headlines. Thanks a lot for watching and listening. We will have another edition next week. Thanks for being with us.